Hi, this is Trinesha Cottrell, and today I wanted to talk about young and dumb. I know, before you click off this video and you start to get offended and you think I'm trying to call people names and everything else, this video, the reason why I call it young and dumb is not because I want to call any person out there young and dumb or because I'm saying I was young and dumb. I'm just using a term that everyone else has used in the past to describe themselves before they knew better, before they started doing better. And honestly, I don't like to, while we're working on ourselves, while we're trying to be a better person, while we are trying to pour life into each other and ourselves and speak positively over others and ourselves, I think it's really important for us to not name call ourselves or others, even jokingly. And I don't mean it like you need to take offense to everything. I just mean when you start off with one thing, sometimes it just turns into a perpetual cycle of cynicism instead of a cycle of positivity, a cycle of something that can advance you, something that will pour the right things into you, speak life into you. And so I think it's really important to be mindful of things like that, because even things that we think are no big deal can end up being the thing that ends up talking us out of something that God is telling us to do. And so I think it's really important for us to think about, okay, instead of saying young and dumb, how about we start saying what Maya Angelou said? And what her words were, we do the best that we can until we know better. And once we know better, we do better. So this title might change to do better just to not offend anybody. But I really want to make sure that we really are mindful of what we're saying to ourselves and what we're saying to other people. Because when you're pouring out your life or you're pouring out your story to other people and people say, yeah, I like to call it, and it's no offense to the people that say things like that. I just want you in the future to be mindful of what you're saying, how you are behaving, the way that you're speaking to yourself, because as a man thinketh, so he is. So we can't allow ourselves to just think negatively about ourselves and expect ourselves to be, reaching all of these goals and be successful and, flourishing in life. We can't flourish if we are only thinking about the bad things, only thinking about the things that we did wrong. And that's part of the ways that the adversary steps in and starts to manipulate you to make you believe that you can't have the things that God wants for you. There was a pastor in a sermon earlier today that was preaching, and he talked about not needing closure. And I know you're probably thinking about relationships, but really we need to think about this in general in our lives. Sometimes it could be with parents, it could be with friends, it could be with a romantic partner, it could be with a job, it could be with anything. And I think it's really important for us to know that we don't need to have an absolute answer to move on in our life. And the pastor started to speak about how we can tell when we're starting to give up, when we're starting to feel like we can't do something because our prayers seem weak. And I was like, before he explained it, I was like, prayers sound weak? Like, what could he elaborate on this? Of course he does. And so, so he begins to talk about how you might, instead of you praying for something that's impossible, something that no one has ever seen, something that generations to come and your ancestors behind you have never been able to, they've never been able to accomplish. You might be the first one. And instead of you praying and saying, God, not praying for $1 billion, but let's say you want to pray for success in your family, for good communication, whatever it is, you pray for exceedingly and abundantly above anything that you've ever seen in your life. You start praying for things that seem impossible, but with God, everything is possible. You start praying and you start really focusing in on things that seem like there's no way, like, I don't see how that's possible. But then we forget God is the creator of everything. That little thing that you're asking for is nothing compared to who God is. And so he said in our prayers, we might say, God, just get me through the day, instead of God, make me blah. Like your prayer before you start to pray these little, like, intimidated and small minded prayers is, it might be, God, I want to be the owner of this business. and I want to be successful in this business. Whatever you see fit in my life, place me there, because I know that no matter what's happening in my life, you could turn the results of the hospital to something positive. You could make a miracle happen right before my eyes. That's how your prayer is when you have faith. That's how your prayer is when you really about that God life. And then once you start to doubt yourself, once you start to allow cynicism to permeate in your mind, once you start to have this perpetual cycle of negativity circulating through your brain, it starts to make you get desperate in prayer. It starts to make you start to be feeling at lack of something. You start to have this scarcity mindset. You start to feel as if nothing is possible. And your prayer might be something like, God, I just want this person in the hospital to have one more day. But you see what the difference is? When you're desperate, when your prayers get weak, he said, when your prayers get weak, that's how you can tell that you are about to settle. You're about to settle in life when your prayer life is settling. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to have a weak prayer life. I want my prayer life to be everything. Like, I don't want to skip out on asking God for something because I'm like, no, I'm okay with this little thing. Listen, I appreciate everything God has done in my life. If God does nothing else and this is what I have, I'm okay exactly where I am. But I also know that my God can do exceedingly and abundantly above everything that I can ever ask, think, or imagine. That there's nothing that God couldn't do for me in my life. And so I'm not trying to be at lack of anything. God is the God of abundance. So I'm not just about to ask for, the bubble that I'm in. I'm going to ask for everything that my heart desires because I know my God can do anything. There's nothing that he can't do. So some people may say, well, it makes you sound ungrateful. It's not being ungrateful. You always thank God and you always tell him how grateful you are for everything that you have in your life. But do not be afraid to ask for more. Know that you are pleased and you are grateful, because when you are not grateful, I wrote this down. I'm probably not going to be able to find it. Let me see. Gratitude. This is what I was going to say today, but I got this from someone else. They were talking about relationships, and I'm about to get into that part right now. But before I do, this person, I can't remember exactly who said it, but they said gratitude turns what we have into enough. It's enough. You're content with where you are. You're happy and grateful and thankful for everything that you have. That does not mean that you can never ask God for anything again. That doesn't mean that you don't want more. God wants you to want more because he wants people to see the miracles that he can have, that he can perform in your life. The things that he can do with you in your life you could be somebody else's witness. So I don't want to be just settling in prayer. I don't want to just settle in my life with God. I want to grow my relationship with God. I want to be intentional about my relationship with God. I want to be serving in my relationship with God. And I want to ask for the things that I really truly desire in my heart and in my soul. Because God wants us to be happy. He doesn't want us to just be like, oh, well, this is the best that it gets. And I'm not going to behave like that anyways. I'm going to always be thankful, even if I have nothing, because I still have breath in my body. So that's still another opportunity for me to be better, for me to help someone else, for me to do something in my life. So I can't just settle in prayer. I need to be about that God life. I need to be real, like really in it. Like me and God need to be like this, like this. So in order for me to do that, I'm going to really need to be intentional. And I'm going to be needing to seek his face and know that nothing is impossible with God. So, so what made me want to talk about Young and Dumb, or Do Better, is I was listening to this thing called Love is Blind. And no, not the TV show. This was a sermon. And the sermon title came from the TV show. And it was the first time I ever heard this pastor and his wife preach, who are both pastors, and they talked about relationships. And I'm going to read a couple things and I may elaborate on a few things as well, but I want to make sure I stick to the notes. So Some of the things that really were important that I noticed when it comes to other people that you're friends with, people in your family, people that you're in a romantic relationship with, is sometimes we like to dwell on what the other person's shortcomings are. Instead of like being grateful for the things that they do, we start to think of, oh, they're not doing this. They didn't do this the right way. That friend, like, it seems like I always do. You're thinking about the things that you do and the type of friend that you are, but you and that person are not the same. So if you need something, you need to be able to ask for it in a really respectful way. And don't just dwell on the things that that person can't do. Maybe that person is great at communicating and you are not. Maybe that person is great at, you know, giving gifts, or they're great at doing whatever it is that they do. And maybe you're the type of person who's great at speaking life into people. So use the type of gifts that you have and appreciate what each one of your friends have, the things that are good about your job instead of focusing on the negative, the things about your family member or your friend or your romantic partner who actually they have good things, they have positive attributes. So focus in on those things instead of thinking of what you're lacking, because every time you think of lack, that's all the adversary. The adversary wants you to be divided with your family, with your friends, in work, in your romantic relationship. Because can, if you guys could work together, if you could really be undivided, it's powerful. We don't even realize how much power we have, how much power God allows us to have, because we spend so much time going at one another or thinking of what somebody else is lacking instead of thinking of what they're packing. I don't know why I always want to say that every time I say that, but listen, I still have a little bit of that. So, and then the next thing they said was just to do your part, and the other person will be motivated because you won't just be telling them the things that they're not doing. You know how good it feels when somebody speaks life into you and they tell you the things that you can do? We're not talking about constructive criticism right now. We're talking about when people speak life into you, when people are speaking words of affirmation, or they're talking you up. Like, it feels good for somebody to say, "Hey, you really did great at that. Hey, you did this. Hey," when someone really appreciates who you are and the things that you can actually do well, it really makes you feel great. And it's something about that allows people to be the best version of themselves, because it's really hard to be good at something or to become better at something when someone's constantly always telling you what you're lacking or what you're not good at. I think that any person who is emotionally intelligent, who is really trying to become a better individual, will look at a positive attribute of a person, because they will want to bring out the best in them. Whether it is in a relationship, when you're with someone, you want to make sure that they know that they are appreciated and not just all the things that they do wrong, because it will encourage them to do better. In a friendship, when you tell them the things that they're doing right, they will feel like they want to spend more time with you and they want to hang out with you more. They want to be there for you because you're the type of friend who's there for them, your family members. When you are speaking life to them, when you are encouraging them, when you're not just being negative all the time or bringing some gossip or something to them, it allows them to know that, hey, they can trust you. Hey, you are somebody who they can confide in. You're someone who they want to be around, because it doesn't always feel like it's a bunch of tension all the time, and they feel appreciated. And every person wants to be seen and heard. Every person. And I think I wrote that on the other side. Safe and seen. Every person wants to be safe and seen. They want to feel like their secrets are safe with you. They want to feel like you're the type of person who they can lean on, who, is about that life. And they want to be seen. They want to know that you actually see them, not just somebody that you want them to be, not just somebody that you're just hoping that they'll become because you have this fantasy in your mind, but someone that they actually are. You to actually acknowledge them and accept them for who they are. Not everybody is willing to do that. And so in this, of course, in the sermon, they talked about, marriage and everything. And it said, if you remember these two things, your relationship, your romantic relationship will always be good. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry to roll my eyes, but I was like, okay, because people always name these like the 3 things that you need, the one thing, it's always like a list of something. And I'm like a little skeptical at the beginning, but then it was biblical, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, I can get behind that. But he said, husbands, love your wives. Love. That's all. That's all you have to do is love them. Just love them. That's it. Love your wives. And some people may add, as Christ loved the church. And then it says, wives, respect your husbands. And they said, when they elaborated, they said men don't need love, they need respect. And because if they're respected, that makes them feel loved. And so I can't go into that because I don't know anything about healthy relationships at all. So I'm not going to just dive into that. I'm just going to give you that one line, and that's it. And then I'm going to go ahead and keep on reading down. And so the next thing was, there are 4 things, 4 types of intimacy that you need in a relationship. And this was talking about a physical relationship, which I'm not a relationship expert. I'm just reading this. Okay. So do not come for me. So the first thing is spiritual. There should be a foundation where you both seek God first. I 100% agree with that. Whoever God graces for me, and I'm graced for that person, I hope and pray that we both seek God first, that God is number one over everything else, over anything that we could possibly want in our lives, so that it won't be a selfish, I want this or that person wants that. It'll be a what does God want thing, which will keep us focused on where we are supposed to be headed, instead of getting off track or trying to prove that one of us is right or wrong. The second thing is intellectual intimacy. Even if the other person, this is the example they gave, and it was like, woof. It was like, even if the other person has Alzheimer's and they might not be at the same intellectual capacity that they were before, are you still going to be able to respect and appreciate that person? I was like, that's a good thing, because they said sometimes people look for someone who's intellectually stimulating like me. I like to be intellectually stimulated because I want to make sure that I'm learning something. I don't want to just have a conversation by myself and feel like we can't bounce ideas off of each other, and I have a lot of ideas. But, that was one of the things. And it's true. That person might not always be there intellectually. And I'm not saying you got to be with somebody who doesn't know anything, and you have all of these thoughts and ideas, and the other person just is like, whatever you want, like like Coming to America or something, But I'm just saying, I digress. And the third thing is social intimacy. Social is just being able to like have a conversation, you're socializing, you guys are both talking to each other. This is the conversation that you guys have, and it's not intellectual. It's just, your mind is the greatest sexual organ that you have on your entire body. And so a lot of people forget that, and they think that intimacy has to do with so many other things. But if you can be intellectually or socially stimulated, someone can really speak to your mind, if you can hold a conversation, if you can really talk to one another, the more that you're talking, the more it stimulates you from the inside out. And a lot of people don't realize that. So for me personally, I think this is so super important. I always talk about communication all the time, how communication is so important. And I just really want to make sure that I can be able to converse with someone, have a real conversation, not feel like it's all about that person, or feel like whatever else, like, or it's all about me. I want it to be like a back and forth thing, like not in an argumentative kind of way, but in an intellectual conversing kind of way. And the fourth thing was physical. And that was the last step. That's the last thing that you would need in a relationship, supposedly. I don't know, but biblically, this kind of makes sense to me. And it says physical, this is like what you're seeing. You're attracted to this person. Because you're attracted to them, this is something that's another level of intimacy, because you see them and it's what you like. You like what you like. And so you are both attracted to each other. This is your cup of tea, whatever else it is. And that's the fourth layer, the last layer. And the pastor, both of the pastors, they went and they kind of did like a thing. It kind of looked like a cake. It was like a step. You can't see that. It was like a step ladder, kind of like that. And what they did was they turned it upside down. So the smallest box was on the bottom and then it went up like that. And they said a lot of people try to put the physical on the top. I mean, on the bottom, like as if it's going to hold up all of those other things. But looks could fade the older you get. You know, there could be things that happen to somebody's appearance or, you know, breakouts or whatever else there is. And if you're only attracted to a person's physical appearance, the relationship is not going to last. Intellectually, I mean, socially, if you're having a conversation, let's say the person can't speak for whatever reason because they just had their tonsils taken out. I don't know. I'm just coming up with an example. If you can't have a conversation with them, that might ruin the whole relationship because you feel like physical attraction and talking is the only thing you need. Intellectually, they said if the person has Alzheimer's or something, you need to be able to know that even if they can't be there mentally, that you would still be able to feel like you would still be there for the person and you would still love them. And love is not, they said, love is not everything. It really needs to truly be an intentionality in the relationship that you both are willing to die to yourselves. And when I say die to yourselves, I know people are like, I don't know what that means. That means that you're not selfish all the time. That means that it's not just about you. That means even though you think it's about you, it's not about you. And even at the beginning, before the pastor went through all of this, they talked about how if you're not willing to die to yourself, stay single because it's not about you. If you can't imagine compromising on anything, you don't need to be in a relationship. And I was like, I kind of get that because it's not, if you want to be in a relationship by yourself and you just want it your way all the time, then just be by yourself. That makes sense, you know? And so they said a lot of people will try to put the steps backwards and they'll feel like without the spiritual being a foundation with God, that all of the other things could stand by themselves and they can't. God and spiritual intimacy is the greatest foundation you can have in any relationship. And I was like, And I have to say this because I know there's going to be that person that's like, I dated people in the church and nobody worked out. Listen, we're not talking about your past. Just kidding. But no, seriously, it's not just about both of you going to church. It's about God giving you a real clear yes on the person who you are dating, and you're both spiritually centered. You're both seeking God first, and God is giving you the okay. It's not a this is what you want. It's what God wants for you in your life. If this is the person God appointed for you and you both have God as a foundation, that is an excellent relationship. Not that I'm a relationship person. I'm just saying that for me, when I visualize my life with anybody, when I visualize being in a relationship or, being with the person that God appointed for my life, and I think about the intentionality that we both would have, I know that without a yes from God, there's no way I can move forward. It would be difficult. I mean, I had some instances in the past and it was, oh my gosh, so difficult to move on. So difficult to let it go because I wanted the things that I wanted. But I know deep down, like once you know God, it's just like without God's blessing, it's really no point in being with the person, because it will never be good enough. It will never be all of the things that God promised you. It will never be the things that you need in your life. It might be what you want right now. But as you grow, as you learn, as you become another person, as you evolve, as you develop, those things that you thought that you wanted in your life will not be what you needed. But God knows what you need more than you know what you need. So when I say spiritual, please don't think I got to date somebody that I go to church with. I would even consider dating people that don't go to the same church as you. That's just my opinion. It could happen. If God says this is your husband and y'all go to the same church, okay, congratulations. You are like one of the few people that happens with. But but if not, and you're meeting other people, definitely make sure that they have a relationship with God, especially if God is number one in your life, because you can't have two number ones. I don't know if that makes any sense, but you get what I'm saying. So I definitely don't want this video to be too long, but I just wanted everybody to take a moment and just reflect. This is for me too. When I do these videos, I'm talking to myself because sometimes I get beside myself and sometimes I run off, and try to do my own thing. And then I remember that God is God. Like, I can't just be out here in these streets like that. I gotta be real. I gotta really be focused on God and make sure that I'm doing the right thing. And even though it might seem like I want to do that, even though it might seem temporarily satisfactory, even though it might seem like man, I can't think of the word that the pastor said earlier. Cheap thrill. Even though it might be a cheap thrill, that is not what I need in my life. I need something that is sustainable. Something that is abundant, not something that's lacking. If it's something that, is no, I don't need a scarcity thing in my life. I need something that's for real. And in order for it to be real, it's got to be through God. It can't be any other way. And so, in conclusion, when it comes to being young and dumb, sorry for saying it that way, or doing better, we really should be intentional with our life. And especially in a relationship, because without a relationship with anyone, you're going to be in some sort of relationship in your life. That's the most important thing. The most important type of thing that you do, the most important type of decision that you make is being in relationships with other people, like with your family members, with your friends, at work, with the person that you date, or your romantic partner, whatever it is. Those are the most important relationships, because I know I'm going to say this wrong, but you are the sum of all of your friends, or the people that you surround yourself with. So you need to make sure that you're being intentional and you're choosing the right people to be a part of your life. Make sure that you are seeking God first above everything else. And when you're doing things in life, make sure that you're showing people appreciation and being thankful and grateful for where you are and what those people do in your life, instead of thinking of the things that they all can't do. Because it's really easy to put somebody down and to talk about all of the things that somebody else is lacking when you're not perfect as well. No one is perfect but God. So try to instead think of the things that that person is great at. Give them their kudos, give them their bravo zulos or whatever else, and allow them to know, give them the accolades. Let them know, hey, you got it going on. You did that, girl. Whatever your saying is, however you talk, that you say when you're congratulating or speaking life into somebody else, make sure that you're doing that so that other people can feel appreciated and they can give you the best of them. Because no one is going to try to give you the best of them if they don't feel good, if they feel like crap. If they feel like crap, you're probably going to get the crappy handout of who they are, not the best version of who they are. So focus on you instead of someone else's shortcomings. Like, focus on what you can do better, how you can communicate better, how you can be a better person, how you can be more appreciative of the things that you have, how you can seek God first, so that when God is ready for you to be in any type of relationship, then you know that you have the power of discernment of the person and discernment of the spirit. The person, so that way you can decide whether this is the right person who should be a part of your life, and of the spirit, because you don't want those spiritually transmitted demons all over you. Because if you choose wrong, some of those things take a while to get off of you. And you're like, I've never been so insecure. What is this coming from? And it's because, Billy was insecure and you didn't even realize it. And God said no to Billy, but you thought, I need to have Billy in my life. Now you're walking around all insecure and you just can't understand why. It's because of that spiritually transmitted demon. We try to pretend like it's not a real thing, like that doesn't happen. And then we wonder why all of us are walking around, or most of us walk around confused, or feeling all of these conflicting feelings, or we feel all of this division within ourselves. Like, we don't know what's going on, why we're trying to think this way and this is happening, why we feel this instead of feeling that. And most of it is because of spiritual warfare. And sometimes the spiritual warfare isn't even yours, it's somebody else's that's got on you. So you have to be really careful and really really take your time getting to know people. Make sure that that's the type of person who should be a part of your life. Confirm with God, of course, so that God can give you a real yes, so that you don't just end up dating a bunch of people who are just having you all so confused in the head, you don't know which way to go. Just everything is going to be okay. I know it seems like a lot and you're like, oh, I'm not there yet. I don't know. Listen, we're going to be not there yet together. We're going to go on this journey. We're going to take our time. We're not going to rush. It doesn't matter what people say, like, oh, you're so beautiful, you should be in a relationship. Listen, the only time I'm getting in a relationship was when God says, I don't know why I did it like that, but he'd be like, this person right here, you need to definitely give this person a chance. And then I'll be like, yes, Lord. You know, and so really just take your life serious. Know that you don't have to have everything figured out right now at this very moment. You can take your time getting to know yourself. What are the things that you really truly love to do? What are the things that you truly love about yourself? Build that relationship with God. Figure out how God can be enough in your life. That's what I talked about in yesterday's video. And I think it's really important to just continuously ask yourself that question. Is God enough? If you're thinking that this person, place, or thing is going to fill God's place, it never will. Because no person could ever be God. No person, place, or thing could ever be God. So really figure out how to be content where you are. And don't be afraid to ask for more.